Hello and welcome. I'm Sue Britz.
And I'm Tina Lokkbakk. Welcome to Retired.
This is the podcast where we talk about what life is like when we put on new tread, new wheels that move us to our next adventure. Hey Tina, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's Monday, Sue. Rainy.
We're going to start trying to get a routine going with our recordings and our releases as well.
Sounds fantastic.
So
So we get to hear ourselves once a week. Is that the plan?
that's the plan.
I love the plan.
I hope our listeners like the plan too.
I hope so too. And I hope maybe someday we could shoot for 2. Who knows? But we'll start with 1 for now.
All right, sounds good. Hey, how you like retirement? Is it boring for you at all?
Well, not anymore because I have direction, but I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, it was horribly boring, terribly depressing, very difficult, I thought, to begin with. And for you, you've mentioned the opposite. So tell me about you.
Well, okay, so yeah, I think that's part of why I think this podcast is really cool because we've got so much similarities and we've shared some of our working history, but our retirements have been very different, and that's one of the compelling things I think about our perspectives. For me, it was totally planned, and we've gone over this a couple of times. I'm not going to bore you with repeating that. But, when you plan something, you really, really want it, I have no regrets about retiring, and the strange coincidence of the pandemic made it even more like, oh my goodness, I am so grateful to be retired and starting this new life. And it's different than I thought it would be. Everyone said, oh, it's always going to be different than you thought. And I thought, no, because I planned it so long and thought about it. But the differences didn't matter so much because I have this attitude about embracing it. I just love it. Yours, you said, was tough, and it just hurts me to hear you say that. So tell me more, because we've been out of touch for a bit.
Well, I think there just came this point where I knew that I was going to move back to where I grew up in Southern California. So I knew that I was going to quit teaching at that time. And I actually had been toying with this idea of, a tourism business. And that's what kind of kept me excited when I was still teaching. And I think what happened is when I moved back down, it's kind of scary to start your own business and it's overwhelming. And I was kind of on my own because my business partner was back in Cuba. So I'm having to navigate space and time completely alone and without the person that I'm going to join this adventure with. So I think what's hard in any time is creating a routine. And I didn't have a routine. Teaching was my routine. And now I don't have it. And now I have to create a business on my own. And I think it was trying to figure out things and trust myself to do this thing. And at the same time, it sounds crazy that I would be bored. But yes, I was bored because I didn't have direction. With teaching, there's so much to do that there's never a boring moment. And now it was the first time like my body went into a place of I create my schedule. It's not done for me. So I think it was very hard for me, and not knowing which way to go kind of kept me stuck, which created boredom.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, when you get stuck, that's the boredom thing. Yeah, I can see that. The routine, the structure, if you fall out of it, then and you're kind of all over the place, then it could easily happen. It didn't for me so much. I think it was, when we were confined to our houses, it's like, okay, one of the top things on my list to do was to exercise and
Mm.
drink lots of water, are things that we were that
Right.
were not easy to do necessarily when you're teaching. I mean, granted, I did PE and that was fun. Every when that came up during the week, you'd have an opportunity to incorporate some fitness. But by the time you got home after a day of teaching, all those kids,
Forget it.
and then putting together a meal and
No,
cleaning up after the meal, it's
no.
just exhausting. It's exhausting. I didn't have the energy for it. So that's what I wanted to honor. And so that was a natural. and wanting to explore different types of exercise that you could do even during the pandemic. I did my Tai Chi again, and I did yoga and Qigong, and figured out my own routine, or weights, and figured out my own routine for those. And that was cool. Added in some spin. It was good. And I need to get back on that. I had an injury, and so it's harder when
Oh,
you do that. You got to get
when you
back in
break
there,
that
but
rhythm,
yep, yeah,
it's
you're
all
back to
about
the
rhythm.
structure. Yep, yep. Yeah, for me that was was easy because I had this goal of taking better care of my body, making sure
Hmm.
I drank enough liquid, have water when you want, because you can use the restroom whenever you want.
I know, what a concept, right?
Yep.
We don't have to say, okay, 45 minutes, body, hold on tight, or call the office, hey, and
Yeah.
have someone replace you. Yeah.
It, that was never a given, and it should be. It's a basic human right to, yeah, use the restroom. But anyhow,
Yeah.
um,
That could be a topic for another time, just the bathroom privilege.
like people
Speaking of
want to hear that.
privilege and retirement, to be able to go to the bathroom when we need to.
People don't want to hear about that. So,
But
no,
it's a big deal. Teachers will relate.
absolutely. And it has impacts on your body and your health as you go through life. But back to like what you were saying, what did you do that allowed you to switch over to a routine and develop your own structure? What happened? How did that come about for you?
Well, I think when I first moved down and had to focus on unpacking, right, and getting my house in order, it was a rental through Airbnb. So that took time. And that wasn't a time of boredom. I think it's when my house got in order and it was, what is my next step? And ironically, I think the idea of going into something so unfamiliar was so scary. I decided to look into teaching again because I knew what to expect. And we had talked about woulda, shoulda, coulda. And I think the shoulda is I should go back and try and teach more because then I could beef up my retirement. So it was like, and I should go back in because, it's part of who I was for the longest time. And I know I'm good at it. But the reality is, when I step back into it I learned you should never do things because you should do them. You have to really, really want to do it. So I think in that experience, I liked getting back into a routine, right? I had a reason to get up, showered, dressed, in the door, prepared. So it was good for that. But it's not my calling. And there came a point where I realized this isn't my thing. This just, especially high school, is not my thing. And that it was such a difficult learning experience, but it was the gift of a lifetime because I realized I am ready to start my business and I am ready to go forward. So it took going back into teaching, sealing the deal, knowing that that's not my thing anymore. It had its chapter in life. So, but then you
You got
again,
retired.
right?
You put new tires
Right.
on. Yeah. Yeah.
So I then realized what I really wanted to do. It hasn't gone away. And now I'm sure that that's what I want to do. So it's a slow process. And I think what you said is it starts with your basic needs. So I kind of scale a brain that will go 1,000 miles an hour with 1,000 different thoughts all at the same time. And meditation for me is to empty out the brain so I can allow space in it to create. So I've made those fundamental shifts. So that started to take me away from boredom because by the time I did those things, I then could move on with the day. So the morning was taken care of. Um, the boredom then came in the afternoon because I didn't have a routine for that part. So now I've got my body in order, but how do I focus in front of a computer when there's so many steps? That's the problem that I have. And the boredom hits, like I said, I get stuck. Like, how do I motivate myself to go forward when there's so many things? So it's hard for me to narrow it down. So it's changed. I'm now much more directed, but I think it's because I'm that much more clear on what it is I want to do. And I think clarity is an important step. what do you really want to do? And then boredom kind of dissipates because when you really know, then it's like everything lines up. I don't know if you've experienced that for yourself.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I was thinking about a number of things as you were talking, and I'm thinking that like when you're doing a solitary activity, it's up to you to intrinsically do it, what you're going to put into it. And if you're catch yourself being bored, then that's when you can fall into boredom more, I think. Um, I don't know. I'm kind of stuck on this one.
What part of it?
I'm just gonna.
Like, are you in awe over my boredom and being stuck? Or,
No, I think everyone boredom comes up so much for a lot of people, and to me, it feels like a very foreign thing. The only times I really feel boredom
mhm.
are it is when I'm awake at night. It's 1 o'clock and I'm
uh,
wide awake and I can't go back to sleep. And I've tried so many things over time, and this is happening more as I'm getting older. And you lay there and you meditate, you use all the different
yeah,
techniques you've learned. Then you go to a happy spot, and none of that's working. And I'd like to
no.
read, but then I have to figure out what I'm going to do and commit to it. So that's when the boredom is, and you just figure out what you're going to do. I love to grab my earpod and pop it in and listen to a podcast that's not very interesting, a little well interesting. I like to pop in an ear pod and listen to a podcast that kind of lulls me to sleep. And there's a number of them out there. I love history, so that's a dry subject, but interesting but dry, and I can find myself falling to
Wait,
sleep.
what's it called?
Well, there's a lot of history podcasts, and I listen to a lot of
Oh,
them.
okay.
So I'm just hoping our listeners don't use our podcast for that purpose. Although
there
if we can help, we can help. So that's good.
there is I did find one once, and it's this lady that reads archaic historical uh information, like from books that are written in the late 1800s to the early 1900s, and it could be like on botany on a specific plant that an entire book was written about, and she's got this droning horrible, but it's meant to put you to sleep. That's the whole point. And then
Then you acquire knowledge as you sleep. That's great.
you do, but it's so boring. You don't even last through it. But anyway, I've tried that route myself. Um, the thing is, I'll just wake up 2 hours later, and I noticed I started to become addicted to having podcasts lull me, but I can't sustain sleep. So I'm still trying, as like you, to find the perfect way to just sleep. I just
Well,
would like to sleep.
the other thing that occurred to me too is, the retirement itself. It's such an exciting thing. I mean, every day is an incredible gift to do whatever it is that you want. So
Right.
if you develop that structure, that routine, um, you can get going on it. And if at any time you want to restructure it and retire that schedule, you can. And I find that delightful. I remember the first year of retirement, I would all of a sudden I would realize what time it was because everything was very time oriented in teaching. And I go, oh my goodness, I'm so glad I don't have to go out and do yard duty.
Oh
It's
God, me
wonderful.
too.
Or, things that would happen. And then I've been outside, we're doing our gardening out there and we can hear the school bell from
Do you
outside.
shiver?
No, and I just go, "Oh, I'm so glad." I don't have that Pavlovian response to the bell like I used to, it's a delight to retire from that.
And it's funny that you say that. I think I'm still traumatized by the bell. And luckily I don't have to hear it every day where I live in my little mountaintop community. Um, but for me, yeah, no, the bell is like, oh my God, now I have to hurry up and go back in and stand on stage before all these eyes. And that is something that this is where it's the blessing and the curse, right? So it's a big pressure that I don't think most people understand unless they do public speaking for a living. but we are public speakers and everybody accountable for me.
Yep.
And it's so less like pressureful, but it is in a different way. But it's that's something that I feel relief that I don't have that. So the bell for me is like, oh, I don't have to quit, go inside and be performance again. I don't have to perform every day.
Right.
So that's a beauty of retirement. That's
Well,
the gift of not
absolutely.
teaching.
When you're in the classroom, you're on. Yeah, and but in retirement, you're on in a different way too.
It is a
You're
different way.
it's up to you, and it's your choice. It's not an obligation to all these little souls that are there. It's your soul
Yes.
that you're having an obligation to.
Do you know what? And I think you just hit the nail on the head. You know, we focus on the kids, and you're right. It's them that gets us out the door dressed and showing up prepared, right? And it this is we've always been other thinking. Whether it's been in marriage, you're thinking about your spouse. When you have kids, you're thinking about the kids. You're now thinking about the students. It's like the first time in your life you get to show up and think about yourself. And I think that's part of a mind shifting thing, because thinking about yourself has never been at least for me, has never been the focus.
I think
And it's a
that's
hard thing.
so many women can totally relate to that because their whole life is about thinking about everyone else, and then you turn around and you're like, you think you know yourself. You're
Yeah.
18 years old, you're out going out in the world, you're enjoying life, and you think you're planning all these things, and all of a sudden you fall into conventions, and then
Yes.
then those conventions overwhelm you, and you
Yes.
try to put your head above water, and you're like, hello, where am I? Where do I exist? And that's when you realize you're kind of drowning. So I'm glad I'm not drowning anymore either. So you have a chance. You got to bring yourself and value yourself, and have people in your life, your spouse, your friends, your children. They need to embrace and value you and build you up too. And without that, then it's not a very healthy relationship.
Right. Kind of lopsided.
Yep.
So interesting. I think I, because I've had this gift of time, it is a gift. And you know what I'm going to say? I think boredom has been an important thing, because by getting bored, Sue, I think that's part of what has sparked my clarity, because I don't want to sit around bored. And it's kind of gotten me to understand myself better with all this time. I've had to sit in my own stillness, quietness, to figure out what it is that makes me tick. And I had to, I think, live through this boredom to really understand my own self and what I really want to do. That gave me the clarity. So maybe I would have to say, thank God, because I've never been able to be bored while teaching, not even during the summer. It's almost like a detox before you have to go back in, like getting your system in calmness before you step back in. But this was the first time where I got bored. I haven't been bored since childhood.
Yeah, I don't think that I really had either, but I like the idea of the slowness. You said the quietness, and um that's a healthy boredom, and I think it's a good one.
Oh,
You could call it something else maybe, but um so many kids, own children, whomever may talk about, "Oh, my boredom, I'm so bored." I just don't relate, because there's always something, like you were saying too. This is where we're very similar. Our minds are racing a billion times an hour, and there's so many things going on. How can I be bored? It, yeah. Heck, you pick up a book and read it. That's another delight that I have. My life is slowed
mhm.
down enough that I can pick up books, make time for myself to read a book, and that's such a wonderful thing um, to reclaim. Yeah.
You got me back into reading when I was having kids and I had been a stay at home mom. And you brought that spark back to me, because I used to love to read. But I was thinking, my reading has shifted. So with the major changes in my life, I have all the self-help, everything. Um, and so that's what I read all the time still. And I think that I think I'm almost afraid to go back and read like fun fictional things. So maybe at a later time you could talk about some things you found because I've gotten into this path of 10 years of self-help. It's all nonfiction, help yourself.
Well, that's what you read what you want or you need, so that's good that you're into that. For me, I like the fiction, I like autobiographies, I like history.
Love
Um,
autobiographies. We both love historical fiction.
yeah.
God.
Or even just history, nonfiction books, and so I like a lot of different things. But that's what I'm saying. I like a lot of different things. I like doing a lot of different things, and so retirement is not boredom for me. There are people who get bored, and I feel for them. It's about embracing other parts of your identity and who you are, and stepping outside of your. I say, get out there and enjoy it.
The more we're talking about boredom, I think maybe that's not necessarily the right word for me because I too, like, I want to take Norwegian lessons. Like, I'm Norwegian and I'm at a 3-year-old level and I can read 50% of a novel, or maybe 70% and get it by slowly going through it. But I so want to learn it. Um, I mean, there's so many things and I took up the drums. I've given them a rest, but for 4 years, 5 years, I've been doing drums. Like I think maybe part of my problem is, Sue, I don't know how to narrow down or focus on one thing because it is kind of like this the whole world. I could do whatever I want, anything, because I do have some privilege right now with, I'm not working and making money, but I have enough savings that it's getting me through. That I think that's also difficult too. Like when you have so much to choose from, what you want to do, like how do you narrow it down?
Yeah,
And I think my problem really maybe isn't boredom. It's like, which direction do I go? And it's that getting out of the stuck. So
yeah.
maybe I should really say I'm not bored. I get myself stuck with too many choices.
All right, so we're back. Let's take a look at another segment we have, which is called Woulda, Coulda, Shoulda.
That was
Okay.
great, Sue. That was great.
So, this little segment is about maybe regrets, things we coulda or woulda done or should have done. And I'll turn it over to you.
You know, it popped into my head instantly. Shoulda. In in this decision to retire, culture says, your scared self says you should work the entire amount of time possible to get your highest amount of retirement and do whatever it takes to make sure you get it. And I broke cultural norms. I decided to risk it and assume that I could do something in lieu of that and still provide for myself. And it's scary, but and maybe we should, plan on meeting when I turn 80 and do I regret it? Do I regret having done it? But inside myself right now, I feel very relieved that I did not push myself to lose more years of doing something that wasn't the right fit, where I felt I was done. And I feel that I made the right decision, even though it goes against everything, because I always had hoped I want to quit before people look at me and say, she should quit. And when I left, the kids were sad, the parents were sad, the fellow colleagues were sad. I was not really sad. I knew it was the right time, but I left on a good note, and I'm glad I did. But again, let's talk when I'm 80 and we'll see where I'm at financially. And you? Do you have a woulda, coulda, shoulda?
Well, in relating to our topic of boredom, the woulda, coulda, shoulda. I think I reflect back on especially the summers when we're off, unemployed after the school year. Uh, it would seem like a natural time to get bored. It wasn't for me. I don't think boredom really was on my books until my
Ever?
until the insomnia happens. Um,
Mm.
but with regard to my to raising my daughter, I think that. The woulda, coulda, shoulda would have been to be more overtly using language to talk about what boredom is and what its value is, what its undermining does to you, and just allow a kid to understand that it's up to them to figure out how to pull themselves out of boredom. And I tried doing it with my
So
kids,
true. It's
with
a
students
muscle.
too. Yeah, and it's empowering them to learn how to do it for themselves and
You're right.
pull themselves from that. And I think I tried doing that. I did the best I could do at the time, and I think my daughter does very well. She's also, got all kinds of interests that she engages with, but to be more overtly using language that discusses it. I think that's we don't take necessarily take the time to do it, and that would have been something that I've learned since I've gotten older. So, yeah.
Excellent.
That wraps up this episode of Retired. Thanks for listening. Next time on Retired, we'll discuss life as a woman of a certain age, living in the patriarchy, and what treads we've found useful.
I'm excited about that topic. Until then, please feel free to lend your feedback or ask questions by emailing us at retiredpodcastnewtread@gmail.com. You're invited to follow us on Facebook at Retired Podcast New Tread. Check the show notes for links and contact information.
Retired is co-hosted by Sue Britz and Tina Lokkbakk. It is produced, directed, and edited by me, Sue Britz. Music and graphics are by me too. Please click to subscribe so you won't miss your chance to
Join our
join our
retired
retired
road
road
trip.
trip.